The Labors of Hercules. The Son of Zeus, Hercules. Princess Alcmene was so beautiful and kind that every man who saw her fell immediately in love with her. Even Zeus, king of all the gods, looked down at Alcmene from his throne in the sky and fell deeply in love with her beauty. Zeus wished to take her as his bride, so he visited her one night, and they were secretly married. Later, Alcmene gave birth to a son and named him Hercules. Since Hercules was the son of Zeus, his strength was greater than any other man's. Hera was Zeus's wife in Olympus, the land of the gods. She knew how much her husband liked beautiful women and was jealous of Princess Alcmene. Hera wanted greatly to see her die, but Zeus ordered her not to hurt Alcmene, and Hera feared Zeus's anger. Instead, Hera decided to get her revenge on Alcmene through her son Hercules. When Hercules was just a baby, Hera sent 2 huge snakes into his nursery. Hercules wrestled with the 2 snakes and killed them. Even as a baby, his strength was great. During his life, Hera did many things to try and hurt Hercules. After Hercules was married and had 2 children, Hera decided it was a good time to take her revenge. She made Hercules think that his wife had been sleeping with another man and that his children were not his own. Hercules became so crazy with anger that he broke his wife's neck and threw his children into a fire. When he realized the terrible deed that he had done, he was so filled with sadness that he left his city and lived alone in a small cave in the mountains. For many months, Hercules stayed in the mountain cave and did not leave to see anyone. He thought about what he had done and prayed to the gods to end his terrible sadness. The gods met together to decide what to do with Hercules. They were angry about his violent act, but they also felt that he had done some great things in his life and should receive a second chance. The gods finally decided that Hercules would be forgiven if he used his strength for good. Apollo, the messenger of the gods, flew to Hercules' cave and delivered this message. "Powerful Hercules, you must travel to Argos and complete 12 tasks for your cousin Eurystheus. Once you have completed these tasks, the gods will forgive you and your sadness can end." Hercules bowed to Apollo and thanked the gods for their wisdom and for giving him a second opportunity. He then left for Argos to see his cousin Eurystheus. The Lion of Nemea. Eurystheus had always hated Hercules. He was a weak king and was very jealous of Hercules' strength, courage, and fame, even though the 2 were cousins. When Hercules met with him and explained the gods' order, King Eurystheus gave Hercules an evil smile. He was very pleased. "You are my slave now, Hercules," began the king, "and you may not leave here until you have completed all 12 tasks that I assign you." Because of his hatred for Hercules, Eurystheus decided that he would find tasks that were impossible to complete. In this way, Hercules would have to spend his whole life as Eurystheus' slave. With this in mind, the king gave his first order. "I have decided on my first task. In the forest of Nemea lives a terrible lion which has been attacking people in the towns nearby. The lion has magical skin that no weapon can break. I want you to kill this lion and bring me his skin." Hercules traveled to the forest of Nemea in search of the troublesome lion. He eventually found the animal sleeping in its cave and walked up quietly so that the lion would not hear him. Pulling out his sword, Hercules struck the lion with all of his great strength. His sword broke into 100 small pieces when it hit the lion's magic skin. The lion awoke when he felt the attack and jumped at Hercules. Still, Hercules was the stronger of the two and used his great hands to crush the lion's neck. The lion could not breathe, and it fell down dead on the ground. Hercules still faced another problem, though. He needed to get the lion's skin off of its body. But how? He wondered. His knife would not go through the skin. Then Hercules had an idea. He grasped one of the lion's hands and tried using its own claws to cut through the magic skin. Using this method, the lion's skin came off easily. Hercules had another idea as well. Since the lion's skin could not be hurt by swords or arrows, he would make it into a coat of armor to protect him on other adventures. He cut the skin into a coat and made the lion's head into a hat. Then he returned to see Eurystheus. When he arrived at the king's castle, he was still wearing the lion's skin. The king was not a brave man. When he saw Hercules wearing the lion's skin, he thought that it was a lion walking on 2 legs. The king screamed, ran into his bedroom, and shut the door. Hercules laughed hard at the king, as did the king's guards who saw the whole scene. The Horrible Hydra. Eurystheus was embarrassed and angry when he heard everyone laughing at him. Still, he was so scared that he would not leave his room and see Hercules in the lion's skin. He ordered one of his servants to tell Hercules of his second task. "In the lake of Lerna," began the servant, "lives a terrible monster called the Hydra. The Hydra is a large dragon with 9 heads, and the head in the middle cannot be wounded. At night, the dragon comes out of the water and eats people in the towns near the lake. The king wants you to save these towns from the Hydra." Hercules knew that this would be a very hard task indeed, so he called for the help of his nephew, Iolaus. "I must go on a very dangerous journey, Iolaus, and I will need your help," he said. Iolaus agreed, and the 2 men set out to find the Hydra. When they arrived in the town nearest to the lake where the Hydra lived, Hercules asked the people about the terrible monster. He learned that many men had come to fight the Hydra, but that all had been eaten. The Hydra's strength was found in its terrible heads. If a man was able to cut off one of the monster's heads, it would instantly grow back. And no man could hurt the middle head in any way. "This is a terrible monster indeed," thought Hercules. "I cannot use my sword to destroy it, for its heads cannot be killed." But Hercules was a smart man and wise in the ways of fighting. He had beaten the terrible Lion of Nemea, and he felt sure he could destroy the Hydra. He asked the people of the town to make him a large net with large stones tied around the outside ropes. He then asked Iolaus to make a few torches that would burn with hot flame. Once all these preparations were made, Hercules and Iolaus left to find the Hydra. Hercules knew that the Hydra only came out of the water at night, so he and Iolaus waited by the lake until the sun began to go down behind the hills. Hercules then told Iolaus to light the torches while he prepared the net. "Iolaus," he said, "when I cut off one of the Hydra's heads, you must quickly burn the neck so that a new head cannot grow in its place." Just then, the two men heard the water moving. 9 huge snake heads rose out of the water. When the Hydra saw Hercules, it attacked him with all of its mouths at once. Hercules jumped back and threw the net over the monster. Because the net had heavy rocks tied around it, the monster could not move. However, this did not stop the monster from attacking. Its heads were narrow enough to get through the net, and each one worked to free itself. Each time a head became free, Hercules would cut it off with a powerful strike with his sword, and Iolaus would burn the neck with his torch. In that way, no new heads could grow where the old ones had been cut off. Soon, only the Hydra's middle head remained. It rushed at Iolaus and bit his arm. Hercules jumped to help his nephew and wrestled the head down to the ground. Once the head was in his strong grasp, Iolaus tied the mouth closed with a rope. Since the middle head was immortal, there was no way to kill it. Because of this, Hercules lifted the Hydra above his head and carried him up the side of the closest mountain. Once he found a cave, Hercules put the Hydra inside and closed off the entrance to the cave with many large stones. Even today, the Hydra still lives in that cave. The Wild Pig. Hercules' third task was to find a special deer with golden horns. This deer was so fast that no hunter had ever been able to catch it. But Hercules found it and killed it easily with his bow. After completing this task, King Eurystheus ordered Hercules to catch a famous wild pig that had been hurting some of the farmers in a nearby town. The king felt that this task was too easy for Hercules, and Eurystheus still secretly hoped that Hercules would fail in one of his tasks so that he would have to be his slave forever. To make the task harder, King Eurystheus asked Hercules to bring the wild pig back to him alive. As he walked to the town where the wild pig lived, Hercules thought about the king's request. He knew that his cousin was jealous of him and wanted him to fail at one of the tasks. However, Hercules knew he wouldn't fail in a task as easy as this one. "I have killed many animals easily," he thought. When he arrived at the town, he asked for 2 cooking pots and some rope. After he obtained these items, he began walking up the mountain while hitting the 2 pots together. Clang, 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 went the pots. When the wild pig heard the sound, it became so scared that it ran up the mountain. Hercules followed the pig, still hitting the pots together. Eventually, the wild pig was scared into running to the very top of the mountain. Once the wild pig had no more place to run, Hercules grasped it tightly and tied it up with a rope. The people of the town were so happy to see the wild pig tied up that they had a great party to thank Hercules. "Let's kill the wild pig and eat him," suggested one of the villagers. But Hercules shook his head. "I have other plans for this pig," he said. When Hercules arrived back at the castle, Eurystheus was still in his bedroom. Hercules took the ropes off the pig and let it free in the great hall. He then went to see his cousin and told him that he had brought the pig back. Now, King Eurystheus thought that the pig would certainly be tied up and walked into his great hall to see the animal. Just imagine his surprise to find the pig running around wild. The king jumped onto a table out of fear, and again Hercules laughed at the weak king. Cleaning the stables. Of course, King Eurystheus was very angry at Hercules because he had once again been embarrassed in front of his men. Because of this, Eurystheus thought of the dirtiest and most awful job he could. "Hercules," said the king, "King Augeas has 10,000 cows which he cares for very much. The king keeps his cows in stables near his castle. Of course, the stables are very large. Because of their size, no one has been able to clean them in many years. Your next task is to clean them so that they look like new." Hercules thought that this was a very awful task indeed. But he did not want to let his cousin see that he was upset. Therefore, he put a smile on his face and said, "Why, cousin, this is an easy task. I will return to you in a few days." When Hercules arrived in the land of King Augeas, he first went to introduce himself. "I am Hercules. My cousin has sent me here to clean your great stables." "I know who you are, Hercules, for your fame is known everywhere. You are welcome to stay in my land as long as you want," the king said. The next day Hercules went out to the stables to think of how to clean them. Truly, they were so dirty that they could not be cleaned by one man or even many hundred. He noticed that the stables were at the bottom of a large hill, and that a river ran along the top of the hill. This gave him an idea. The next day he went to see King Augeas and told him, "Great king, I can clean your stables for you in just one day, but you must first take all of your cows out into the fields." Of course, Augeas did not believe that Hercules could complete his task in just one day, but he wanted his stables cleaned so much that he ordered his men to take all of the cows out into the fields. When this was done, Hercules climbed up the hill above the stables and found a sharp rock. He used this rock to dig a hole leading from the river into the stables. As the river water flowed through the stables, all the dirt inside was cleaned away. When the stables were clean, Hercules again filled the hole with dirt and allowed the river to continue with its natural flow. Hercules then returned to see his cousin. When he arrived, King Eurystheus could not believe that Hercules had completed his task so quickly. Only 3 days had passed since Hercules had left him. But later that day, a messenger arrived from King Augeas thanking Hercules for his great deed. When he heard the news, King Eurystheus was very angry. The Amazons. Hercules' next task was done for Eurystheus's daughter, Admete.
"There is something I want, Hercules,"
she began.
"On the north side of the Black Sea lives a group of fighting women called the Amazons. They have no husbands, and no men live within their society. Their queen is called Hippolyta, and she wears a beautiful dress covered with jewels. I want that dress."
Hercules knew that this task could be very dangerous and that he could not handle all of the Amazons by himself. Because of this, Hercules gathered together a group of strong fighters, and they left to face the Amazons together. They traveled many months to find the land where the Amazons lived, and saw many strange lands and strange people along the way. When they arrived at the castle of Queen Hippolyta, Hercules expected a terrible fight. To his surprise, the queen welcomed him with kindness. She had never seen a man so strong and handsome as Hercules, and said,
"Please come in. I will have a great meal prepared for you and your men."
While they ate, Hippolyta asked Hercules why he had come to the land of the Amazons. Hercules was a brave and honest man and answered her truthfully. "Great Queen, my men and I do not wish any harm on you and your people, but I have come to ask for that dress you wear." Hercules then explained about the tasks he had to complete to satisfy the gods and free himself from his service to his cousin. The queen listened and was not angry.
"You may have my dress,"
Hippolyte said, looking at Hercules with hungry eyes.
"but not until tomorrow. Tonight, I wish for you to sleep in my bedroom with me. Tomorrow you can leave with what you have come for."
Hercules' task was not going to be easy. All this time, the goddess Hera had been watching Hercules and looking for ways to keep him from succeeding in his tasks. That night, while Hercules slept with Hippolyte, Hera transformed herself into an Amazon and walked among the other women, telling them that Hercules had come to steal their queen away from them. When they heard this, the Amazons attacked Hercules and his men. A great battle began, and Hercules and his men were forced to kill many Amazons. Hercules felt terrible about killing women and was especially unhappy when he had to face Hippolyte in a fight. She was a fierce fighter, and Hercules admired her skill. She jumped at him with her spear, and Hercules had to defend himself. He wrestled her down to the ground and made her give him the jewel-covered dress. Hercules left the island with great sadness in his heart. Hippolyte was the strongest woman he had ever met. He had deep love and respect for her. Hercules was angry at Eurystheus' daughter, Admete, for her terrible greed and desire for the Amazon queen's dress. The Golden Apples. Over the next years, Hercules completed many more tasks for King Eurystheus. He killed the poison birds of Stymphalus. He wrestled the mad bull of Crete. He brought the king the wild horses of Diomedes and the cows of Geryones. He even traveled to the land of the dead and brought the king the three-headed dog that guarded its gates. Hercules only needed to complete one more task before he was free from his slavery. King Eurystheus thought of the hardest task he could, in hopes that Hercules would not be able to complete it. The king gave his last order. "I want the golden apples that Zeus gave Hera. The apples are guarded by 4 women called the Hesperides. Find the apples and bring them to me." This last task seemed impossible. Hercules did not know how to do it. The Hesperides were powerful immortals who would never let Hercules approach the apples. Also, Hercules knew that the Hesperides lived with a great dragon that had teeth as long as swords and could breathe fire so hot that it would melt metal. After much thinking, Hercules decided that he needed the help of the Titans. The Titans were giant men that had lived in the world before ordinary men were created. Hercules went to find the Titan called Prometheus. Long ago, when the first man was born, Prometheus stole some fire from the gods and gave it as a gift to men. This angered the gods greatly, and they punished Prometheus in a terrible way. They tied him with chains to the top of a mountain where a giant meat-eating bird lived. Each day this bird flew down and slowly ate out Prometheus's liver. This was horribly painful. Then, each night, his liver would grow back, so that he would have to go through the same pain the next day. Hercules climbed the mountain where Prometheus lived. As he climbed, he heard Prometheus's terrible screams, and he felt great pity for the Titan. Once on top, Hercules took his bow and arrow and shot the vulture that had caused Prometheus so much pain over thousands of years. He then broke the chains on Prometheus's hands and feet. "You have freed me," said Prometheus. "If there is anything I can do to thank you, I will." I have also not been free for a long time, said Hercules. I will not be free until I get the golden apples that Zeus gave Hera. Go and see my brother Atlas, said Prometheus. Tell him what you have done for me, and he will help you. Atlas was the largest and the strongest of the Titans. It was his job to carry the earth on his shoulders and keep it separate from the heavens. When Hercules arrived at the place where Atlas stood, he looked up at the great Titan and said, Great Atlas, you keep the earth and heavens apart, and all men admire your strength. I have recently freed your brother Prometheus from his chains. He told me that you would help me in my current task. Hercules then told Atlas all about his 12 tasks and about bringing the golden apples to King Eurystheus. I can certainly help you with your task, said Atlas, but I cannot leave my job here. I must keep the earth apart from the heavens. Perhaps I could hold up the earth for you while you are gone, said Hercules. Perhaps you could. Come here and try, said the Titan. Atlas slowly lowered the earth down onto Hercules' shoulders. The earth's weight was great, but Hercules was able to support it. When Atlas saw that Hercules was holding the earth firmly, he ran off to find the golden apples. Atlas returned just a day later with the apples. Because of his great size, he was able to run to the place where the Hesperides lived in just a few hours. He had killed the dragon while the Hesperides slept and taken the apples easily. However, while he was away, Atlas realized that he was very tired of carrying the earth on his shoulders. He decided that he would not take it back from Hercules. He decided to trick Hercules into holding it forever. I have returned with the apples, Hercules, said Atlas. But I wish to help you more. I will take the apples myself to King Eurystheus for you. Now Hercules was not a fool. He guessed that Atlas might never come back to carry the earth again. He said, You are too kind, great Atlas. It would be very helpful if you would take the apples to King Eurystheus. But will you do one thing before you go? I am not used to carrying the earth like you are. It is uncomfortable on my back. If you could just hold the earth for a minute, then I will get my blanket and put it on my back, so that the earth does not hurt me any more as I hold it. Atlas agreed and took the earth off Hercules' back and put it on his own. However, Hercules did not go and get his blanket, but instead picked up the golden apples. I have changed my mind, Atlas. Actually, I will take the apples to King Eurystheus myself. Atlas looked very sad, but did not say anything. He did not want to admit that he was trying to trick Hercules. When Hercules returned with the apples, Eurystheus was so impressed that he could not feel jealous of his cousin any longer. You have completed my 12 tasks, Hercules, and done as the gods ordered. You are welcome to stay in my kingdom as long as you want, but not as a slave. You are now a free man. Hercules left his cousin and the land of Argos soon after and wandered the lands freely again. He traveled to many towns and did many good deeds. He earned great fame for his adventures and had many happy days. Still, sadness always lived in his heart, for he could never forget the face of his sweet wife and loving children.